So Venu Sports, the recently, or semi-recently, I think it was maybe 2 months ago, the recently announced joint streaming sports television venture between Disney and Warner Brothers and Fox, they've unveiled the price. It's going to be about $42.99 a month. So this was projected to be around $40 to $50 a month, so this falls right into that. And for comparison's sake, so it would be more a month than what a regional sports package would cost you. So usually that would be like $20 to $30 a month, but it's less than a larger digital TV package like YouTube TV or Hulu Live TV or whatever it is. Usually those run you anywhere from $75 to $80 a month, right? If you sign up for Venu Sports when it launches at this price point, you'll get a 7-day trial, and then you'll be locked into that price for 12 months. But I don't think you're paying your annual price all at once. I believe you can cancel at any time, right? And notably, this joint venture is going to feature 14 sports-centric networks, right? So it's a very, very diverse, or diverse is the wrong word, but a wide array of content offerings. So the 14 networks are going to be ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, SECN, ACCN, ESPN News, ABC, Fox, FS1, FS2, BTN, TNT, TBT, True TV, and that's it. I could have swore TBS was part of that, but I guess not. And Variety notes that older content from those stations will also be available. So if you think about, like, ESPN has a huge library of critically acclaimed sports documentaries, right? That's going to be part of it, right? So that's huge. That's a huge get. This would be a huge deal if it was just the networks, but you're going to get all this legacy content as well, right? And not only that, but eagle-eyed viewers will note, wait a minute, ABC isn't playing sports 24/7. So is the ABC option in Venu Sports just going to be like grayed out until there's a game? No. So theoretically, you can use this as a way to just watch ABC, Good Morning America, or sitcoms and whatever. If it's part of that linear feed, it will be part of this package, right? The company is forecasting to gain about 5 million subscribers in its first 5 years. And we have a quote here from Venu Sports CEO Pete Destad saying, quote, "With an impressive portfolio of sports programming, Venu will provide sports fans in the U.S. with a single destination for watching many of the most sought-after games and events. We're building Venu from the ground up for fans who want seamless access to watch the sports they love, and we will launch at a compelling price point that will appeal to the cord-cutter and cord-never fans currently not served by existing pay TV packages," end quote. And again, that's the big thing, and that's the reason why I wanted to talk about this, is this really feels like a watershed moment for streaming, television, and sports television, right? Because, like I've talked about many times on the show, sports and to a lesser extent, but still very much true, live news coverage. Sports is one of the few things that's keeping the linear broadcast model alive, right? Because you can go binge Sopranos, at your own pace, whereas a game is on at a certain time and it happens in real time. So it's a great business model because you're able to sell really good ads because there's a built-in audience that is going to tune in and not just DVR it and skip the commercials, right? Because I'm not a huge sports player. I don't watch sports really. But from my understanding, there's really not a lot of value in taping a game and then watching it later, right? So this is huge that you're now going to have this joint venture with 3 different companies that have all of their subsidiary sports content all together in one package, right? The Hollywood Reporter notes that they're building the business on essentially 3 core pillars: live games and events, like I mentioned, like their studio shows and like their pre and post game coverage, right? So, for example, TNT's Inside the NBA, right? And then, like I said before, that library content, like sports documentaries. And they're targeting a launch for fall of 2024, but it still faces regulatory scrutiny. It still needs to get approved by, the Justice Department. Of course, that Fubo, which is like another sports streamer, that's more like a third-party sports streamer, has sued, basically calling this like a monopoly and anti-competitive, and it could very well be. But I haven't heard any movement on that lawsuit, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. But they're targeting a launch this fall, which I'm not sure when that would be, though, because I would imagine they would want to start in time for the football season to start, and that's like September. And it's August. So I feel like a lot needs to happen in the next couple months for this to actually launch, right? But again, like I said, this is monumental, right? It's a comparatively low price. Again, it's more expensive than it seems more expensive, right? Because we're used to paying $5, $10, $15 for things like Netflix or Disney Plus or Max or what have you. And this is like north of $40 a month. But again, you're getting 14 networks, right? And all that library content. And if the only reason why you have cable is to still watch sports and watch these channels, this is way more cost effective, right? And again, it's not even like they're selling it at a discount, because again, it's still going to have ads. It's still linear television. So there's still ways to monetize your attention. So it's kind of a win-win-win in a sense, right? For all parties involved, for the audience, for the streaming services, and the people, the advertisers, right? And again, it's going to be great because it's going to be a host of all these sports offerings all in one place. Notably, though, it's still going to be missing like NBC and CBS, which notably, I think NBC is like, the primary NFL distributor, but not all games. So that's a big missing factor. Maybe they'll come in at a later point, in which case maybe it will be a monopoly at that point if they include NBC and CBS. But again, this move reflects the shift to streaming that we've been seeing slowly but surely, right? We're gonna start seeing more. I've talked about this a million times, that I think one of the biggest mistakes that Hollywood has made in the past decade was individual companies deciding we're going to have our own streaming service. We're going to have our own walled-off garden with all of our content. And that just has been borne out to not be effective, because most of these companies don't have the library to support that. And people, even if it's like the same price overall, like if you just paid a lot more money for a single mega streaming app, it wouldn't sting as much compared to having to have like 5, 6, 8, 10 different subscriptions you have to keep track of, right? So we're going to keep seeing this shift to bundling, or in this case, joint ventures, right? And we already have seen that in the history of streaming, because Hulu itself was started as a joint venture between a bunch of different media companies, and eventually Disney acquired sole control over it, right? So we've already seen that before. This is not necessarily new, but I think you're going to start seeing way more collaboration between the different legacy media companies. Because, I ultimately feel that streaming should have just stayed the way it was in terms of having that distinction between the streaming service and the companies creating the content for it, where I feel like these companies would have been better off if Disney made The Mandalorian and then made a deal with Netflix to distribute it on Netflix, right? Which they did before. I think the last season of the Clone Wars animated series, after it got canceled and was taken off Cartoon Network, they did like a half final season until the final season years later. But that was on Netflix, right? So that would have been the best way to do it. But they've already created this issue, so they have to find ways out of the hole they dug themselves into. So one of those is bundles, and then the other are joint ventures like this. And notably, though, all of these three joint partners, Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Fox, they're still going to be offering all these channels separately, right? Like, they're still going to be part of regular cable. And furthermore, ESPN is gearing up to launch their own standalone streaming service, ESPN Plus. Why is everything Plus? I'm not going to get into it. And, of course, Warner Brothers offers a sports package for streaming service Max, right? So there's still other ways to get this stuff, and I think that might help them in their antitrust case. in their lawsuit from Fubo, basically being like, it's not like we're walling it all up. You can still get all of this content elsewhere. We're just making it more cost effective and more accessible. But there are a few hurdles here for them. Not to mention the regulatory stuff that I mentioned. But Deadline notes that the value proposition of this service could be hurt by Warner Brothers losing the NBA rights, right? That was a story I did last week. You can find on my channel. Basically, Warner Brothers and TNT have had the NBA rights for some time, the rights to show these games. And Amazon is trying to swoop in to get those rights, and they made an offer, and Warner Brothers matched the offer, and the NBA rejected the matched offer, and there's a lawsuit, and all this stuff. So if they lose that could hurt the service, and maybe they'll even lower the price if you don't have that element to it. The ultimate question is going to be, will fans buy it, right? Will people, again, because I'm not the target demographic, right? So will sports fans buy it and buy into it, right? Is this the future for them in terms of their sports consumption? My prediction is that the initial launch may be shaky because, again, you're trying to pull people away from cable, and some people may already be locked into year terms, and you're going to release this and they're going to be halfway through their term. However, I feel that despite an initial shaky launch, the first year results if it launches in September, from September to September, I think those aren't going to be gangbuster numbers, but they're going to be very promising. I think once the target demographic has had a year to either get it or see their friends have it, and then their current sports subscriptions expire, I think you're going to see people slowly move to this, and ultimately I think this is the future. Eventually we won't have cable companies. You will have apps where, because right now it's we have all this streaming stuff and on top of our cable offerings. In the future, it's going to be reversed, where really you go into the app and a live linear feed is just one of many tiles. Kind of like when you go on Tubi or Pluto, you can watch different movies and shows on demand, but then they also have pre-programmed channels for people that yearn for the curation, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see it'll be interesting to see how quickly that shift happens for sports.